You don't need perfect English to be understood. If you're learning English, you've probably worried about making mistakes. Maybe you're afraid to speak because you think your grammar isn't good enough. Maybe you hesitate before sending an email because you're not sure if your sentences are correct. Maybe you avoid conversations because you're worried people won't understand your accent. These fears are completely normal. Almost every English learner has felt this way at some point. But here's something I want you to know. Something that might change how you think about your English journey. You don't need perfect English to be understood. Not even close. In fact, most communication isn't about perfect grammar or perfect pronunciation. It's about connection. It's about sharing ideas. It's about making yourself clear enough that the other person gets your meaning. And you can do that, even with mistakes, even with an accent, even when you're still learning. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. There are more people in the world who speak English as a second language than people who speak it as their first language. Think about what that means. English has become a global language, a way for people from different countries to communicate with each other. And most of the time, when people are speaking English together, nobody is a native speaker. They all have accents. They all make grammar mistakes. They all sometimes forget words or mix up tenses. But they understand each other anyway. They communicate. They do business together. They make friends. They share ideas. Their English isn't perfect, but it works. I remember the first time I really understood this. I was at an international conference, and I met people from dozens of different countries. There was a woman from Japan, a man from Brazil, someone from Russia, someone from Nigeria, someone from France. We were all speaking English, but nobody sounded like a native speaker. Everyone had an accent. Everyone made mistakes. But you know what? We had wonderful conversations. We laughed together. We shared stories about our lives. We discussed complicated ideas. And not once did anyone stop and say, "Wait, your grammar is wrong." Because we were focused on the meaning, not the mistakes. We were focused on connecting with each other, not on speaking perfectly. This is what real communication looks like. It's messy, it's imperfect, but it works. When you're talking to someone, they're not listening with a grammar book in hand, checking every sentence you say. They're listening to understand your message. They're paying attention to your ideas, your emotions, your story, and as long as you're clear enough for them to follow, they'll understand you, even if you make mistakes along the way. Let me give you some examples. Imagine you're in a store and you want to buy a shirt, but you can't find your size. You might say, "Excuse me, do you have this in medium?" That's perfect grammar. But you could also say, "Excuse me, you have medium?" Or even just medium with a questioning tone while pointing at the shirt. Would the store employee understand you? Absolutely. Your grammar might not be perfect, but your meaning is completely clear. You want a medium-sized shirt. That's all that matters in that moment. Or imagine you're at work and you need to tell your colleague that you can't come to a meeting tomorrow. You might say, "I'm sorry, but I won't be able to attend the meeting tomorrow because I have a doctor's appointment. That's great. But you could also say, sorry, I can't come meeting tomorrow. I have doctor. Is that perfect English? No. But does it communicate the essential information? Yes. Your colleague understands that you can't come to the meeting tomorrow because you have a doctor's appointment. Mission accomplished. Here's another example. Let's say you're trying to explain to a friend that you're feeling tired because you didn't sleep well last night. You might say, I'm so tired today because I had trouble sleeping last night. Or you might say, I'm very tired. Last night, I no sleep good. The second version has mistakes, but the meaning is clear. Your friend understands that you're tired because you didn't sleep well. They get it. Now, I'm not saying that grammar doesn't matter at all. It does matter. As you improve your English, your grammar will naturally get better, and that's wonderful. Better grammar gives you more tools to express yourself clearly and precisely. It helps you avoid misunderstandings. It makes you sound more fluent and confident. So yes, keep learning grammar. Keep trying to improve. But don't let imperfect grammar stop you from communicating right now, today, with the English you already have. The same thing is true for pronunciation. Many English learners worry about their accent. They think people won't understand them if they don't sound like a native speaker. But this simply isn't true. There are so many different accents in English. British English sounds different from American English. Australian English sounds different from both of those. And within each country, there are regional accents. Someone from Texas sounds different from someone from New York. Someone from London sounds different from someone from Scotland. All of these people have accents, and all of them are speaking English correctly. Your accent is part of who you are. It tells a story about where you come from, and in most cases, people can understand you just fine, even with an accent. The key is not to eliminate your accent, it's to be clear enough. Make sure you're pronouncing words in a way that people can recognize them. If someone doesn't understand a word, try saying it again a little slower, or try explaining it in a different way. But don't be ashamed of your accent. It's not a problem to fix. It's just part of your unique voice. I once had a student from Vietnam named Linh. She was so worried about her pronunciation that she barely spoke in class. When I called on her, she would give very short answers, just 1 or 2 words, because she was afraid people wouldn't understand her if she said more. One day, I asked her to stay after class. I told her that I could understand her perfectly well, and so could the other students. Her pronunciation was fine. Not perfect, but fine. Clear enough. I encouraged her to speak more, to stop holding back. She looked at me with surprise. She said, "Really? You understand me?" I smiled. "Of course I do. And I want to hear what you have to say, not just whether you can say it perfectly." That conversation gave Lynn permission to try. She started speaking more in class. Sometimes people asked her to repeat something, and she did, without embarrassment. Sometimes she made mistakes, and she kept going. And you know what happened? Her English got better quickly, because she was practicing, because she was using the language instead of just studying it in silence. Within a few months, she was one of the most active students in the class. Not because her English became perfect, but because she stopped letting imperfection stop her. This is the paradox of language learning. The more you worry about making mistakes, the less you practice. The less you practice, the slower you improve. But when you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you practice more. You use the language more. And the more you use it, the better you get. Your mistakes actually help you learn because each mistake teaches you something. When someone doesn't understand you, you learn to say it differently. When you forget a word, you learn to explain it in other ways. These are valuable skills. They make you a better communicator. I want to share something else with you. Native English speakers make mistakes too. All the time. We say, I should of, instead of, I should have. We mix up your and your in text messages. We start sentences and forget how we meant to end them. We use incorrect grammar in casual conversation constantly. Does that mean we're not speaking English correctly? Well, technically, maybe not. But are we communicating effectively? Yes. Because in real life, communication is more important than perfection. Think about the purpose of language. Language exists so that humans can share thoughts and feelings with each other. That's it. That's the whole purpose. Language is a tool for connection. And like any tool, what matters is whether it works, not whether it's perfect. If I use a hammer to build a house, and the house stands strong, does it matter if the hammer has a small scratch on it? No. What matters is that it did its job. Your English is the same way. It's a tool. And if you can use it to make friends, to do your job, to learn new things, to express yourself, then it's working. It's doing its job. Maybe it's not a perfect tool yet. Maybe it has some scratches and dents, but it works, and that's what counts. So, what should you focus on if not perfection? Focus on clarity. Try to make your meaning clear. If you're worried that someone might not understand, you can ask, "Does that make sense?" Or, "Do you understand what I mean?" Give people the chance to ask questions if they're confused. And when they do ask, don't feel bad. It's not a failure. It's just part of communication. Even native speakers ask each other for clarification all the time. Focus on key words. If you can't remember how to make a perfect sentence, just say the important words. Nouns and verbs will get you pretty far. I go store tomorrow isn't perfect grammar, but it communicates the idea. The person you're talking to can fill in the missing pieces. They know what you mean. Focus on body language and context. Communication isn't just words. It's gestures, facial expressions, tone of voice. If you're smiling while you talk, people know you're being friendly. If you point at something while you're talking about it, people understand what you mean. Use these tools. They help make your meaning clear even when your words aren't perfect. And focus on courage. It takes courage to speak in a language that's not your own. It takes courage to risk making mistakes in front of others. But that courage is worth so much more than perfect grammar. When you speak, even imperfectly, you're being brave. You're putting yourself out there. You're trying to connect. And that's beautiful. That deserves respect, not criticism. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine you meet someone who speaks your native language, but they're still learning. They make mistakes. Their grammar isn't perfect. They have an accent. Would you judge them harshly for that? Or would you be patient? Would you appreciate that they're trying? Would you focus on what they're saying rather than how they're saying it? Most kind people would do the latter. They would help. They would understand. They would be patient. And that's how most people will treat you when you speak English. They'll focus on your message, not your mistakes. Of course, there will always be some people who are impatient or unkind. Some people might correct you rudely or act frustrated when they have to ask you to repeat something. But those people are the exception, not the rule. And honestly, their rudeness says more about them than about your English. Most people are kind. Most people understand that learning a language is hard. Most people want to help, not hurt. Here's what I hope you'll take away from this. Your English doesn't have to be perfect to be useful. It doesn't have to be perfect to be valuable. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to communicate, to connect, to be understood. Yes, keep studying. Yes, keep improving. But don't wait for perfection before you use your English. Don't hide your voice because you're afraid of mistakes. Speak. Write. Express yourself. Share your ideas. Make those mistakes. Learn from them. And keep going. Every conversation you have, even if it's full of errors, is making you better. Every email you send, even if the grammar isn't quite right, is practice. Every time you push through the fear and use your English, you're building confidence and skill. You're becoming more fluent, not because you're perfect, but because you're trying. Remember, millions of people around the world are using imperfect English to do amazing things right now. They're running businesses, making friends, falling in love, creating art, teaching, learning, traveling, living full and wonderful lives, all in imperfect English. If they can do it, so can you. You already have everything you need. You have vocabulary. You have some grammar. You have courage. You have ideas worth sharing. That's enough. More than enough. So the next time you want to say something in English, but you hesitate because you're not sure if it's correct, take a breath and say it anyway. Trust that you'll be understood. Trust that your message matters more than your grammar. Trust that making mistakes is part of learning, not a sign of failure. You don't need perfect English to be understood. You just need to try. And you're already doing that. You're doing great. Keep going. The world is waiting to hear what you have to say.